when we discuss rule number 6, safe speed. And as you read that rule, it's very important to note that there are 6 specific cases that you must consider when thinking about safe speed, as well as 6 radar cases. So in terms of testing strategy, it is required for you to memorize at least these 6 specific cases, which are the state of visibility, the traffic density, including concentrations of fishing vessels, the maneuverability of the vessel with special reference to stopping distance, at night the presence of background lights such as shore lights from backscatter of your own lights, the state of the wind, sea, and current, the draft in relation to depth of the water. So those are all pretty straightforward. I'd like to just talk a moment about the presence at night of background lights. So if you've ever brought a ship into a harbor at night, it's very easy to confuse the traffic stoplights, red, yellow, green, with vessel lights, port and starboard side lights or towing lights for yellow. So coming into a harbor at night, it can be very tricky. And so the key to that is looking at how fast your vessel is moving compared to other vessels in the neighborhood when you go to determine your safe speed. Finally, the other 6 radar cases, in order to pass the test, are not required to be memorized, but you should read those and just in essence realize that the limitations of the radar can get severe when you get into a harbor, so it may affect the speed that you decide to proceed at. The other interesting thing about the Rule 6 safe speed is that in court cases where vessels were deemed to be going too fast in a collision case or an accident, the courts often say that a vessel must be able to stop within half the distance of the current visibility. So if you can see 5 miles out to the horizon, that means that your vessel must be able to stop within 2.5 miles in order to be proceeding at a safe speed. So what's important to note is that is not in the rules of the road book. You will see some questions that have that as an incorrect answer. And it is, in essence, like I say, in court cases, it's upheld that way, but it's not necessarily in the rules. So if you ever see half the distance in a rule question, it's probably not going to be a correct answer. Next is sometimes if you have an electronic aid to navigation, you'll see speed over ground or speed through the water. And these can be 2 different things. So if your vessel is traveling through the water and the water is also moving along, your vessel could be proceeding at a pretty high rate of speed without you knowing it. Take an example of a river, for instance, or a canal such as the Cape Cod Canal. When the current is moving in one direction or the other, your vessel can be going 10 knots through the water. But if the water is also moving 4 or 5 knots, now you're doing 14 or 15 knots. So that's something you need to consider. And then finally, safe speed needs to be continually evaluated. As the conditions change, your speed needs to be evaluated as well. So for instance, if you're operating near an area of restricted visibility, but not in an area of restricted visibility, you still may need to slow your safe speed because of those conditions. So go ahead and pause the video right now and take the quiz for the safe speed question, and then we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, for the safe speed quiz, the first question states, the rules state that certain factors are to be taken into account when determining safe speed. Which is one of the factors? And in this case, the answer is current, right? So if you refer back to the 6 cases that are specifically mentioned in the rules, you have to memorize those 6 cases because you're going to see questions like this on the exam. When is your vessel traveling at a safe speed as defined in the rules? Looking at these answers, choice D is correct when you can take proper and effective action to avoid collision. And those are the words that are used in the rule, proper and effective action to avoid collision. It is probably a good idea to judge your speed based on your wake. And in fact, the court cases have ruled that you are responsible for your wake in all cases. But according to the rules, it's not mentioned. When you can stop your vessel within the visibility range, that again is common sense, but it's not written in the rules. And when you're traveling slower than surrounding vessels, it's not ever a bad thing to be going slow, I guess, but that's not written into the rules. So the correct answer is choice D, when you can take proper and effective action. For the third question, both international and inland, the rules state that a vessel shall be operated at a safe speed at all times so she can be stopped within what? This goes back to this half the distance question, right? Sometimes you'll see, as in choice A, half the distance of visibility. And as I mentioned, the court cases have ruled that that is sometimes a method of determining safe speed in collision cases, but the rules do not say that. Choice B and C are also both incorrect, and choice D is the correct answer. A distance appropriate to the existing circumstances and conditions. Again, those are the words used exactly in the rule, and that's always a safe bet. For the fourth question, which factor is listed in the rules as one which must be taken into account when determining safe speed? Again, we're back here to the 6 specific cases that you have to memorize, and one is the maneuverability of the vessel. The construction, the experience, those are not listed in the rules. They're a good idea to take into account, but they're not listed in the rules as factors to be considered with safe speed.